Colorado. We've had some great weather, just crisp blue skies, and when it's not, we get a little rain, which is good too. But I'm understanding that we're going to get some warmth over the weekend. We're going to hit some 100-degree days, supposedly. So welcome to the show. Today's theme is love yourself. Give yourself a big hug. Yeah, right now, go ahead. Give yourself a big hug. It's the thing to do. As I say that with a smile on my face, there's going to be moments where I'm going to maybe sound a little aggravated, perhaps even get angry. Because as much as I want to have my love for myself be shared outwardly to others, it's difficult some days to do that because of the distractions I have. We're going to talk about those distractions as it influences elite performers and their ability to optimize the outcomes that they desire. But before we get to those details, let's talk about the start of our show today. We do it with a mindset moment. We've got a great quote from Elizabeth Gilbert. That quote goes like this: "To be fully seen by somebody, then and be loved anyhow, this is a human offering that can border on miraculous." So basically, Elizabeth is saying that whatever you may do, if you're loved by someone, they will love you even if you are not behaving in a way that is acceptable in general terms. And that ability is very miraculous. Simply put, it's forgiveness. Love thyself so that you may be able to love others. Elizabeth Gilbert, her quote once again is, "To be fully seen by somebody, then, and be loved anyhow, this is a human offering that can border on miraculous." That's a wonderful setup for today's show because it talks about unconditional love and sharing gratitude amongst each other. And as I say that, the show theme is emphasized here in this screen for those of you watching our video broadcast, our live broadcast here on KUHS TV, or if you're just on the radio side of things. The theme is start with self-love and share that with others. And the pictures I have are of Highlands Park, Illinois, where the sharing of love is seen in these pictures, whether it's the lighting of a candle at dusk in memory of those who lost their lives on the 4th of July, or it's the friend, family member, perhaps a mother, standing along the memorial and the streets of Highlands Park with her hand covered as she sheds a tear in remembrance of those who have been lost. Or maybe it's the first responder workers. In this case, the picture I have is of FBI agents walking the streets looking for perhaps shell casings or valuables of other people. And then there's those moments of just genuine sharing transparently how they feel with one another. Today's July 8th, 4 days after the 4th of July occurrence at Highland Park, Illinois. A lot of things have gone on. But let us not forget, we have also things like Uvalde, Texas, the tragedy that was there. And now they're going through a whole nother version of trying to grasp that challenges their grasping a hold of their own love for themselves and their family, because they're questioning the decisions that were made by the officers in blue, their brothers in blue, and why they didn't take a more aggressive stance quicker. Gratitude. They're struggling with sharing gratitude and love for one another. I would ask them as well as myself, because as I said when we started the show, it's difficult sometimes to muster up that care, consideration, compassion, empathy that helps you communicate gratitude towards people. But it is in fact gratitude that's the first step in generating a smile to your face. We'll talk about some of those strategies and methods to help each of us get through the day, and hopefully not with the same kind of obstacles that the people at Highland Park or Uvalde, Texas have had to deal with in being a resistor to their ability to be grateful and loving to one another as well as to themselves. We're going to look at some world events and what they reflect on gratitude and love. The first one, and this is, when I bring this up, these are not to distract you away from what I opened the show with regarding Highland Park, Illinois, or Uvalde, Texas. Those are the extremes of another pressure, obstacle, resistance to being grateful and sharing your love. But then it goes from that extreme to the other end, where it's just over the top, laughing and smiling and lots of animation and enjoying yourself to the point of crying for a whole nother reason. I'm sure you've been in the room at home or at a theater or someplace where things got funny and ridiculous, and you laughed so hard you cried. You laughed so hard you couldn't hold back the tears. Well, perhaps that's the case for Kate Madigan, who recently took the assistant GM's position, was promoted at the New Jersey Devils hockey team, the NHL hockey team. Pretty good timing as I look at it, because the draft is going on for the NHL, and New Jersey could certainly use some more draft choices that will help their pursuit of moving up in the ranks and vying for a Stanley Cup. That is the ultimate prize, right? We here in Denver realize that. We're the recipients this year. Let's see how well we'll do. Can we repeat? Let's hope so. But Kate Madigan may be shedding some tears or making some big smiles for other reasons. I'm interested in knowing what about Kate Madigan and her gratitude, her interest in what she does. Is it with a lot of love and interest in it that got her there, or is it just tenacity? She just blows right through it. Now remember, this is a male-driven sport. Of all the male-driven sports out there, it only comes probably second to football as to being a tough, testosterone-driven place for women to succeed and progress in a career. Knowing a little bit about Kate, not as much as I'd like to, my hope is that within the next few weeks we're going to get Kate Madigan on the show. We've got a request in. I've got some colleagues that work with the New Jersey Devils. We're looking forward to getting Kate on the show, because I'd be interested in knowing from her, what's the formula, girl? What did you do? What are you going to share with other little girls who play hockey, who love hockey, or just any sport for that matter, and how they might progress up through the ranks and become the executive that you are in taking care of the things that need to be taken care of. And as the GM has said in public statements after her appointment, he is very grateful for having her around. She's involved herself at every level of that organization, from just merchandising and the operation of the arena to scouting and up from there. She is definitely a big part of what goes on at that organization. So more than I'm sure I'm going to be able to say about her and her ability to have that position and have earned that position. But as I say that, I'm guessing that Kate's embroiled in the moment right now with the NHL draft and getting good recruits. And then when that happens, onboarding those recruits and getting them into the summer league so that they're well prepared for the beginning of the season this fall and winter. But we've also got other things in this country that are going on. A lot of protests going on, whether it's because of gun control or it's because of the Supreme Court's decision about Roe versus Wade. There's a lot of things, a lot of demonstrations going on with, I'm hoping, the premise that those demonstrations are fights for a better tomorrow. And to do that, I'm going to just extend it in today's theme. To get to a better tomorrow, you should start your day with gratitude for whomever and whatever has crossed your path, so that you can feel confident in going into that new day, that it is the beginning of a better tomorrow. And as I say that, I want to reflect on the fact that events around the world. And one of those events happened yesterday that surprised me a little bit. The ex-prime minister from Japan to the United States, Abe, was shot by a gunman, assassinated by a gunman this week. And that's a shame, because this is a gentleman who globally and very quickly, global leaders responded to share their condolences to not only his family but also to the nation of Japan. And that's where environments need to be monitored by all of us to see where is the pockets of gratitude or the absence of the gratitude and the love, so that we can adjust and adapt and change the environment so that it stays pure and clean and gentle without any kind of concern for our safety. But recently it's been the other side of the coin. It's been the negative side of the coin. The environment is not being watched. The environment, before the gunman in Highland Park, Illinois, even got to the roof of that building and pulled the trigger to set off over 60 rounds from his automatic rifle. We knew better. People knew better. I said we because it's a collective. It's a global collective of we, in looking at our environment and understanding who's in that environment, so that we can fight in that moment for a better tomorrow, and that we don't miss the troubled young man, 21-year-old, who was constantly being observed as being in trouble in his own mind. He wasn't loving himself. He didn't care about himself enough to have gratitude for his family and the things in it. He had more of an opinion about hurting himself and others, and repeatedly he was noticed. Police officers in the area had been called upon to go see him. So environment is hugely important. I'm asking people to be aware of your environment. Now that's an extreme. So it doesn't matter what the environment is. It could be Kate Madigan sitting at the table at the New Jersey Devils recruitment, I guess, of the new candidates coming into the league. That's an environment you want to watch as well, so that it stays on task to the mission of the team and the program. Well, here's another example of that. Another environment similar to Kate Madigan's. We had another young woman that became the president of the Las Vegas Raiders, Ms. Morgan, Sandra Douglas Morgan. Now, it's interesting with hyphenated names. I never know which one they want to use. And in the press, you see Sandra Douglas, then I see Sandra Morgan. And so I just used Sandra Douglas as the first one to be seen. But that's very interesting. Two of the most masculine sports on the planet to participate in have major changes happening. Both of them are equally strong changes, very optimistic changes for the future, that both genders hopefully, this is going to come true more often, have equal chances of becoming their best in the sports and the industries they love to excel in, regardless of the environment. That we are aware of what's going on in those environments to make sure that the environment is not a distraction, or gosh sakes, not an obstacle to allowing the best to have a better tomorrow. A lot of things are going on. A lot of things are going on. In addition to these wonderful progressive changes that have happened with Kate and Sandra, we've got other environments that have to be looked at as relates to the theme today about loving yourself. Look at, you go to the grocery store over the weekend, there's some chance to be disappointed. There are some emotional obstacles just walking down the aisles of the grocery store. The first one is there may not be enough stuff there. The supply chain. The second part, if it is there, if there is the produce you want to get, the cuts of meat, the beverages, the chips, whatever it is, the prices are going to probably be sky high. Now, typically, you know, price checks are, we look at it economically. We look at milk, bacon, eggs, those kinds of things, the staples. My son and my grandsons would disagree that staples, Grandpa, are chips and salsa. That's a staple. I would tend to defer that to what we're talking about today. But their prices are high. That's another thing that you look at that's an emotional obstacle. It becomes very hard to face those realities and come up with a start of your day where you feel grateful. I don't feel grateful for the high prices of gasoline, produce, meats, milk. It just doesn't make any sense. Here's why it doesn't make any sense to me. We have the power to make the changes. So when we're thinking about making these changes, you might be asking yourself this question: what does love, I'll go with the song, what does love got to do with it? Well, it has a lot to do with it, because it sets a mindset, a mindfulness about how you're going to progress through your day. If you're a young person who's struggling with just normal everyday thoughts about where your head is at, and you're faced with these kind of obstacles, or even just the feeling of the negativity, you might lose control on the roof of a building and shoot people. We need to get this under control. Love is a first place to look. Or if you feel a little bit uncomfortable with using the word love too much, because that pushes your vulnerability meter, believe me, I've been looking at vulnerability a lot, especially within my male athletes that I work with. But once you get a handle on that, regardless of the environment, your gratitude, the pleasure of being present shines through. You are more fluid in running the route. You are fluid and strong in coming to the plate and covering it the way you know you need to cover that, so the pitcher doesn't get the advantage. And you're grateful for the opportunity. Those are examples of what I mean by what does love got to do with it. I'm really excited about being able to ask Kate Madigan those questions. I want to get a hold of Sandra Douglas Morgan as well and ask her the same questions, because their answers need to be heard by anybody who's listening, but especially young girls who are trying to look for their path for a better tomorrow. And so that we and they can help themselves by fighting for that tomorrow with love in their heart and being able to understand that love and communicate it throughout every day and every moment in that day. So, too often, the emotions get pushed to the side because you're so channeled into the tasks. And that relates to talent. But is talent enough? I'm just going to guess. I'm not going to put words in the mouths of these young women and others that have progressed up through the ranks about their feelings on, is it just talent? Or is it also their understanding of who they are as people emotionally? And that they can muster up what's necessary every day to identify their gratitude for who those people are, what those things are that they're grateful for, and then begin to look for that and make sure that those are part of the environments they work in, so that they have the chance to continue loving themselves in those moments regardless of the environment. So my answer to the question, is talent enough? No, it's not. But talent is the first thing that's measured because it's easy. It's right there. Resume, boom, 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 time stamped, all the necessary things to validate they're real. Yeah, Kate's done those things. Yeah, Sandra's progressed. Yeah, she's got references. Oh yeah, these people love her. We call them up, we talk. Those are all measurables. But just like I've talked over the weeks about intangibles with athletes, we have intangibles in all of us. The intangibles that are unlocked by the emotions that we feel comfortable with and that we get in touch with on a daily basis. And one of those, which has been proven by psychology theorists and behavioralists, sociologists, all the gists, is that gratitude is a big part of that. Happiness is a big part of unlocking your potentials. Because no matter how much talent you have, there may become moments where the competition, the environment the competition is in, locks you up, causes you to freeze. Which then begs the next question. So how much more is required? Well, as I answer that question and think about my answer, you should think about, I'm asking you to think about, it's not by yourself. It takes more than just you to get to the levels of greatness that you aspire to. I can't imagine that any one of the women that I've mentioned this morning, or anybody I've ever known in professional or high-performance athletics or business, would say, I did it all by myself. There was nobody there to support me, nobody there that needed to remind me or charge me up about how I needed to love myself and feel good about my world. If they do, they're foolish, they're naive. Within every environment you're in, there's going to be people in those environments and things in those environments that you need to be aware of so that you can take advantage of their support. So it's help from others, asking for help, knowing you need the help. And yet there are so many different things in those environments and within the people you look to for help that can change very quickly and surprisingly quickly. So when you muster up your gratitude every morning, because remember, well, you may not remember, but I'll remind you that I tell my athletes that work on this mantra, it's all about me, in a self-aware way, so that when you're in those environments that help to promote you and things change quickly, you are still able to muster, because of how you started the day within that change in that environment, to continue to be your best. Well, here's some examples of that. For those, this picture is so familiar to a lot of us because recently it's been put on the air a lot. This is the Supreme Court as it exists today. It's missing one character who was signed in this, I think last week she was signed in, our newest Supreme Court Justice. But before she took office and could even vote her first time, a lot of things happened. And Clarence Thomas seems to be at the center of a lot of it. Either him or his wife. Sorry, a little sarcasm there. But the Supreme Court has made some decisions about many things, and this is my opinion. I don't know how many would agree with me, but I'm using the word ignorance. Now these are smart people. These are scholarly people of the law, of the Constitution. Not exactly my forte. I know a little bit to be dangerous, but what I am really good at is the people side of things, the behavioral side of things. The Supreme Court, not every one of them, but majority of them, 5 of them for sure, are not behaving in a way that's representative of the national community. Because if they were, they wouldn't be legislating in ways that seem to ignore a greater majority of the population that wants to be able to have a choice. That's ignorance to me. So to me, when we have a preponderance of that type of ignorance, where the consideration for how we make decisions going forward is not given a basis of understanding of the communities with which we live in, that's status quo. That's that group, that small group of individuals. In this case, there's 9 of them at this point. There is going to be 10, perhaps more, but 9 for sure, that are not listening to the people in the community. So they're not allowing for any change. There is no change. Sorry, no change. Just status quo. We'll just go with it, even though they have said outwardly, publicly, that the status quo historically was good enough. But their legislation brought us back to the beginnings, before Roe versus Wade, with the excuse that that's where we need to land in letting the states handle it. Well, even with that, if the states handle it, they're not listening to their population either. Now, coming back again, not getting too far away from our theme for today, love yourself. Feel good about you. And in doing so, you have clarity of your purpose and your intent. And with that clarity, you can be empathetic as you listen to the people that trust you, respect you, look to you for decisions about the status of the community or their household. Maybe you're the parent of a household. But when we don't have that kind of interchange and interaction with one another, things happen. Obstacles are created. Now, the picture I have up here, I purposely picked it because of the stop sign, but it's a stop sign at an intersection in Highlands Park, Illinois. And the car at that stop sign has no passengers in it, because this is a crime scene. It is left as it was when everything settled down and the shooting stopped. I'm sure the owners of that car got their car back. But that's a stark reminder of an extreme obstacle. And across the street from that car are officers securing the crime scene, making sure that no looters come in, perhaps. Those are reasonable considerations that we should be grateful for. And in that gratitude, work very, very hard at not letting your emotions get out of control and lose sight of those kinds of people on those corners taking care of this kind of tragic sight where only hours before people were killed. Now, that's the extreme as it relates to our theme today on loving yourself, because I believe if we don't, as a global community, start every day looking towards what and who we are grateful for so that we can continue to reinforce loving ourselves, we are going to continue to have more environments where there is no change, and those leaders who are legislating guidelines are ignorant to what the needs of the communities are, because they are not in the communities. They are related to precedent and staying on the precedents from the past, way before Roe versus Wade. This gets me to a question I was asked by a woman when I worked out the other morning. She said, "Where should we start to fix this?" And before I could even give her an answer, or even a thought, barely took a breath, she was already giving me the answer. And she said, "We have to look to a higher power." Then she went quickly to the discipline of our children. And then from there, she just kept reiterating all different kinds of things. Well, that wasn't one thing. That wasn't where do we start. That was a whole litany of where we start. And I kind of tongue-in-cheek, I asked her, I said, "So which one should I pick?" One thing she and I could agree on, we need to come back to taking care of self and loving ourselves through whatever deities, powers, influencers, leaders you relate to. So it starts with the one. It starts with every individual, then interacting with another individual with a gratitude and a feeling of love in their heart that unlocks the possibilities and allows us to remove the obstacles so that we have opinions that do represent our communities and that we are taking action for the greater good. Similar to, with sports, I'm going to come back to a sport I love dearly and played for many, many years, still try to shoot the ball a little bit, is basketball. And I've been a basketball coach at fairly high levels. I've never gotten to actually coaching the pros, but I've been around the pros. I've coached college and I've coached high school. And what's interesting to me is the coach is, in fact, that person who can make sure that the emotions on the team during the game are filled with an appreciation for each individual player. So the coach is reinforcing self-love, reinforcing the gratitude of himself to the players, reminding them that they need to be grateful for that person who threw them the pass, that gave them the assist to shoot the ball and make a basket, for the person who called out the screen and say, hey man, thanks a lot, I really appreciate that. That's gratitude. Appreciation is in fact gratitude. But the coach is also there to make sure that rules and guidelines are followed. We're not following a lot of rules and guidelines. And if we are, it's a camouflage. It's a mirage that we brought back from the past, thinking that why continue with the pain and heartache we have now? Let's just go back to the past and do it that way, because it was better then. Well, that's a different time. So as a coach, when you are taking actions to guide and motivate and hopefully help remove the obstacles that players are facing on the court, you are acting out what teachers do, parents do, first responders do. Regretfully, those great examples a coach might give parents, teachers, first responders, leaders are not always effective when you go back to your home and try to apply them. Especially the parents in Uvalde, Texas, because now they're questioning the decisions that were made by law enforcement and in pursuing the attacker in a timely fashion. It seems that in the reports the FBI are putting together, and by the way, let me just preface, the FBI is doing a phenomenal job down in Uvalde. They're gathering the facts, making no judgments about right or wrong, just saying, look, this is what happened. Can we do this better? This is a group that has a lot of gratitude and are grateful for their colleagues and their peers to do their job. They're moving forward with a sense of self-love. Now, I don't know that they're feeling it the way like I'm saying it today, but I know that's the essence of what's happening. They want to make sure that we don't mess this up in the future, that we can gather something from that tragic event. Just like what they're going to do in Highland Park, Illinois. They're going to gather the information and hopefully offer insights and facts to leaders within the community, within the state of Illinois, and hopefully at the federal level, so that we get change happening, that it's not status quo, and that we move forward with this. But in Uvalde, Texas, it's like living it all over again. I can really empathize with the parents there and with their disappointment with law enforcement. And by the way, remember, it's a small town. These law enforcement officers are working in agencies, but they live in Uvalde. So these are people that they interact with, and they've got to look at each other across the aisles at church, in the synagogues, in grocery stores. Those are tough obstacles that will fight you and your emotions to be grateful. Because some of them had different degrees of gratitude as to what their uniform meant. They hesitated, they were afraid. Well, you know what? I've got to appreciate that. I've got to have some kindness and empathy in my heart about that. Just like as a coach on the floor, when a bad pass is made, well, let's go, pick it up, forget that, move on, let's go. Because I'm confident that we can retrain, remind them of things they have been trained about, and say, hey, we can't let this happen again. I hope that's where it goes. I hope that's what happens, and that they take a moment. They take a moment to just breathe and take that moment in that breath as they reflect on what has happened to them and the obstacles that are put up in front of them in a more sublime setting. I made a bad pass, or I've made a good pass, he didn't catch it, she didn't catch it. Those don't have the kind of consequences that happened in Uvalde. But I'm hoping that every parent, every associate, friend, neighbor in those towns, in Highland Park, all over the country, find a moment to find a sunset, like what I've captured here on the island of Kona at the Kona Hotel, looking out at a wonderful dinner with my partner to recharge that gratitude and to really look inside and say, I'm okay, I'm here, and because of that, I can deliver something for someone else who's struggling. I can be forgiving to those who have been confrontational or who have been violent towards me or others. And I can look for, just like what the FBI is doing, they're looking for answers. They're not pointing fingers. They're not making judgments. They're trying to understand, how do we not repeat this tragedy? How do we get in front of it before it even occurs? We had signals. We have signs. Look, I train athletes all the time on the mental side of their game and sport about practicing so hard that you cause failure. Because it's that failure that you get a chance outside of the competitive arena to understand, if I see it like that, I'll know what's coming. Now, I may not have absolute confirmation of fixing it, but as I see it coming, because it's still, I didn't expect it. I've practiced it. I've kind of sort of got an experience that looks like that, and I'm going to try not to make the mistake I've made in the past, but there's no guarantee. I can tell you that because of that process of forcing errors in practice, pushing so hard that that happens, we are well better prepared when anything close to that happens in real time in the competition, because we take moments to reflect and sit back. I have such great discussions, sometimes close to what sound like arguments, with coaches, in particular football coaches, because they're really film heavy. And as to look at the film and not get immersed into the X's and O's, but get really played out with a reflection, not just the details. Like in this picture, I've got a sunset, people sitting on a wall watching the surf and the sun, and they got palm trees. Well, those are easy. Those are easy things. You know, it's like in football. You've got the offensive line, the defensive line. You got D-backs and receivers, quarterback, running backs. Those are obvious things. Look for the things that are hard to find, so that you can smooth things out and get a full picture. It's when we get surprised that it gives a little jolt to the emotional light in us. But when you are looking compassionately and gratefully into the opportunity you have in watching that film, taking the moment by yourself alone to just reflect, it renews you. So here's the question that you might have. That's great stuff, Doc. It's all wonderful stuff. You know, you're talking about the coaching stuff now as well. That's awesome. How the hell do I do that? They shot my kid. What do you want from me? He dropped a pass. I can't take it back. Can't go backwards in it. The kid was wide open. He missed it. He didn't throw it where he could catch it. Can't go back. What do you want from me? How do we improve our chances? How do I mitigate the consequences in the future? There is no absolute answer. You get one shot on every day to do it your best. That's a reality. Everybody's faced with that. What I've asked you to do is think about starting every day with a sense of gratitude, being mindful of that every single day. As the mantra I share with my athletes, it is all about you. It's all about you, focused on you, not in a selfish way, but in a self-aware way. Because without that self-awareness, reflecting on gratitude and the love you have for yourself, it is very difficult, if not impossible, for you to be supportive or empathetic to anyone. The two young men that shot people, the young man in Uvalde, Texas, who lost his life, and the young man who was taken into custody in Highland Park, Illinois. People didn't think about them. They had probably so much pain in their life, whether it was contrived on their own merit or they were just a bad hand, whatever it was. It built up into them that they created this image that was not a loving image of themselves. They were hurting in some capacity. Here's what we should do so we can avoid those consequences and that hurt. So you can begin by every day having a daily gratitude. Then when you swing those feet over the side of the bed, that could be the moment. Or maybe it's when you're brushing your teeth. You're thinking about it. I've even said to people, write them down. Have a journal near your bed. Write down your gratitude for that day. Read it, write it, say it. Those three things help to stick it in your head and engage you in that behavior that has been started by a thought about gratitude. Every day. Do it every day. Now, I do the first one. Every day I do the first one, especially on Fridays. But the second one, if I do a random act of kindness, it's not consciously. Now, if I do it consciously, I feel really even better. So I got to get better at that. So random acts of kindness are another way for you to reinforce and wrap your arms and your brain and your heart around your gratitude for yourself and your love for yourself so that you are able to share that with others through a random act of kindness. Now, also I want to qualify random act of kindness. It could be without anybody else involved. My best example of that is if you're walking down the street and there's nobody around you and you see a piece of garbage on the ground, pick it up because you're not concerned about anybody seeing you. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do. That, in fact, for me, is a random act of kindness. I know that Oprah has made a lot of press on this one, the random act of kindness. The other one, and these are kind of in order as your day progresses. Just think about it. I start my day with a gratitude. Random act of kindness can go throughout the entire day. You could actually write some things down. For some people, some of us who are very organized, very order-minded, write them down. Say, I'm going to do this. This is my random act of kindness. That's what I'm going to do. Now, it makes it even better for a random act of kindness when you have social connections. You get out. The pandemic has kind of caused us to hesitate about that, but it's getting better. So get out there socially, friends, family, doesn't matter what it is, have some social contact. That begins to help you not only spread your gratitude and your love for others, and maybe that random act of kindness, but it also gives you feedback. You get some validation. Oh, it doesn't sound as ridiculous as I thought it would in my head because I'm getting these great responses. Or maybe it even sounds better. But it gives you a chance to understand how you're being accepted and related to by others. The other piece of mindfulness and in getting this started is at some time during each day, exercise. Now look, it doesn't have to be powerlifting or a huge competitive game of basketball or hockey or volleyball or whatever, or biking or swimming, whatever. Just exercise. Get your heart rate at least above 110 beats per minute for an extended period of time, like say 10, 15 minutes worth. There's so many different definitions of workouts nowadays. I mean, walking the halls of your business could be a workout for some. But get up and move around. Change your settings. That's, from a psychologist standpoint and a social psychological point of view, changing your viewpoint helps to level out your emotions and get you, continue to keep yourself mindful of who you are, that abundant spirit, that it's not all gloom and doom. Because if you're just hunkered down over your keyboard and you don't get out of that frame of reference that's as wide as your eyes, well, you could have a less than abundant mindset. And you might not love yourself much. So get out there and work around. Get the blood flowing. As I said, heart rate, and look, you got Fitbits, you got watches that have all the different monitoring devices on it. Get your heart rate up to about 110 plus for an extended period of time. So that's the other thing. Now, this is, how obvious is this, right? Sleep and rest, or rest. So during the day, for example, you can just take a moment. Sleep and rest, you can include things like meditation. You can take in there that the meditation stuff is be alone. Now, you can have people around you to be alone, but don't have somebody with you, like walking with you. And take that restful time frame and do it in arenas, in environments that really you choose. I mean, it's not, oh, hold on a minute, I got to go rest because coach said I have to go rest. No, it's got to be about you, all about you, so that you are truly feeling the gratitude for who you are and what you bring to the table in reinforcement of that love for yourself, so that you can love others and be grateful for them. It's got to start with you. And sleep and rest is also a closure moment. You want to get good rest at night. I can't even believe I'm going to say this because it's hard for me to be vulnerable on this particular issue. But I, for the first time in my life, I got a CPAP machine. I'm feeling some results. I was a bit tentative about even doing it, but I'm starting to see some results in how well I feel. Longevity, critical thinking, creativity, that kind of stuff is sharper. It's amazing what oxygen can do for you. But it is still, it's not over yet, a process that takes some getting used to. It takes some having some gratitude and thinking it through and really loving myself so that I know that I'm doing this because I need to be better at being me. And the actions I've listed here with daily gratitude, random acts of kindness, social connection, get out there and be with people, and then have some exercise. And remember, exercise doesn't have to be going to the club. You can just take a walk around the neighborhood, get on your bike, those kinds of things, so that you get the heart rate up. 100, 110-ish for 10 to 15 minutes at a pop would be awesome, and on a daily basis. And then, rest and renew. Get some sleep, get some good sleep, and rest your brain and your body so that you can continue to reinforce that wonderful center of gratitude. See what I did? Not gravity, center of gratitude. I think I mixed it up by gratitude. Did I say gratitude? I think I did. I meant gratitude. Center of gratitude. It's so important because I'm seeing, with all of these tragedies, I'm seeing so much of the behavior that is not mindful, a mindset that's not considerate of who you are and the love you need to have for yourself. Now remember, I've well studied and I've learned a lot, but I'm going to put this outside of my world and give you a reference here. Go to www.viacharacter. It's the Vision Institute of Character, viacharacter.org, and there's a free assessment you can take that gives you some insights about the degree of gratitude you're feeling and your love for yourself. Awesome website, some great exercises you can produce there. I did this myself. It's awesome. A professor from Yale is hooked into this viacharacter.org, viacharacter.org organization, and she uses it as a tool for her classes. She's a sociologist and psychologist, just a wonderful woman that I took a class with. So check that out if you can, and take necessary steps that will help you be your best. So, I come across quotes all the time, and I try really hard to make sure the quotes fit and align with our lessons for each show on Fridays. And one of those lessons I learned was hydrating. Just a brief moment of hydration. And Henry Winkler is one of my favorite actors, the Fonz. Hey, yeah. And Henry is just a consummate actor, he's always either got leads or he's a bit part. He's just a good thespian. He just loves the art of being on stage and performing for the camera. So here's his quote that seems to fit not only him, but fit what we're talking about today. I live by two words: tenacity and gratitude. I couldn't say it any better than that. That's what we're talking about here. A tenacious fervor. I'm asking you to be tenacious, like Henry Winkler, up to the levels you're comfortable with. Not everybody is as comfortable as what I'm necessarily referring to in my inflection. But tenacity and gratitude. Get after it, because your happiness is directly related to how much gratitude you share. And your smile is one of the best barometers of how that gratitude is manifesting itself in your happiness. And I think Henry Winkler's quote fits it. He lives by two words: tenacity and gratitude. He is tenacious, and thankfully he's still with us. He is tenacious, and I think the Fonz and the character that he played as the Fonz is representative of this quote for Henry Winkler. He embodies some of the Fonz, or he wouldn't have been so good at it. It's important for me to emphasize at this stage the kind of love that is needed, and that there is a belief amongst us that what we leave behind, if it's led by love and reinforced by love, it will not end. The footprint we leave behind that is wrapped by love, compassion, and gratitude for others, it's because of that wrapping it intentionally through yourself to others is why it never ends. Without that effort, without that socialization contact, get out there, be involved, have a mission for yourself. It's not going to happen, people. We're going to have more incidences globally. We're going to have more people gunned down and taken from us too soon. It's not what I want, and I hope I'm not alone in that sentiment. I don't think I am when you see the pictures that are being shown on the streets of Highland Park at the memorials of candles and flowers and stuffed animals in remembrance of the people who lost their lives. When you are tenacious with your love and your gratitude, and you share it, it will manifest itself in smiles, if not in yourself, within others. So remember, those who compete in your world, whether it's competing on a sports team or in a business office or just at home for your attention, those who are trying to level up their contribution on a daily basis are the ones I want to hang with. And I hope there's a lot more of us out there. I hope you will share your thoughts with me. Share my podcast of this show so that others can hear about the desires I hope you and I have about loving yourself, sharing your gratitude, and being one with that feeling. Now, as we get close to the end of the show, I want to make sure that I emphasize here's a story that came away from Highland Park that just, it really touches me. It makes me sad, but at the same time, in a kind of a backhanded sort of way, it reinforces the love of self and how that precious moment that happened on the streets of Highland Park embodies love of self that protected someone else. An 18-month-old little boy was with his mom and dad on the streets of Highland Park on 4th of July. And regretfully, when the gunshots rang out, they came in contact with this little boy's mom and dad. But before his dad passed away from his wounds, his gunshot wounds, his dad covered his son up, his 18-month-old son up, with his own body. Obviously, I don't know for a fact, but I'm guessing based on those reports, he knew enough as he was dying to protect his son. His love for himself was shared with and for his son. Now, that being said, there's a lot of gratitude for that kind of effort by that father and any father like him, or any parent like him. But there's also the gratitude of the fact that that little boy is still here with us, and that his grandparents, despite the fact that it may be very arduous for them to raise an 18-month-old child at their age, they're grateful that he's still here. My hope is that their love for themselves, as their son's love was for his son and their grandson, carries on, endless, never ending, going forward. And that the story of that little boy is cherished by anybody who's feeling disenfranchised, angry, disheartened about what the system is doing that holds us back. And the system is an obstacle for us instead of a supporter and reinforcer of what's good for us. And there's where I hope that the gratitude extends itself, because love of yourself and the gratitude you can project can become very, very powerful if we unite it together. Because the message is not one of a bombastic delivery, but more of a very focused, very purposeful and clarified intent because of the stories that reinforce it, like this 18-month-old little boy and the sacrifice of his parents. So that maybe we can take those and many more that have come before it and now coalesce it into one pocket of energy that truly changes the minds and the hearts of those who have tried to reinforce status quo. We need the change that is necessary to represent community. And it starts with loving yourself and extending that love and gratitude towards others. If I had perhaps sounded like I was on a soapbox in those last remarks, I don't regret what I said. I just regret that if you thought I was on a soapbox, I didn't make my point. That you got lost in my emotion and didn't hear the message. Whether you're a performer on a high-level elite sports court, or in a boardroom, or at home, just taking care, not just, but taking care of your children and your family, all of those have something in common that they connect with, and that's the love of yourself so that you can share love with others. If we don't build that framework for ourselves, we are going to continue to experience heartache, disappointment, and loss because we're not taking the steps necessary through the gratitude and through the love we have for ourselves to use it as a power to make a difference. I hope you'll make a difference, and if it helps, direct people to my Spotify platforms on, or my podcast platform on Spotify and Apple and Google, so they can listen to this show and hopefully get motivated to take a stand and share their love with others and their gratitude in a way that not only gets them involved, but helps us to move forward with the necessary changes that represents our communities. So that as we plan for the future and we take some action, that action is purposeful in its intent and delivers what is the best for all of us so that we do have a better tomorrow. Every day that I have a chance to wake up and share my love for myself, I have challenges just like everybody. Some days are better than others. But I get a chance to renew the next day and have another shot at it. I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for the people that are here at KUHS Denver, checking us out on Facebook Live, well, Meta Facebook Live, every Friday. So be well this weekend, be safe, and be loved. Take care of you for you, and share what you have about you and how well you feel about your purpose in this life, and share it with others. Have a great day today, everybody. Till next Friday. Talk to you soon.